Recording in 7th, 2:30. I think all members are present. Can we have a roll call, please?
Director Edwards,
Here.
Director Paul,
Here.
Chair Anderson.
Here,
All members are present.
thank you. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. And at this time, we invite comments from the public on issues that are not on today's agenda. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody who would like to make a comment?
Chair Anderson, I see no raised hands.
Thank you very much. So the first item is the committee meeting minutes from September 12th. Are there any comments or edits?
I have no corrections.
I have none.
Okay, I have none either.
I move that we approve them.
Second.
All those in favor?
Oh, let's ask the
Oh,
public.
oh. Pardon me?
Just check with the public, see if they have any comments.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have anything to comment about the minutes of our September meeting? Anybody have their hands raised?
I see no raised hands.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call?
Yes. Director Edwards,
Approval.
Director Paul,
Yes.
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Minutes are approved 3-0.
All right. Item 2 is related to work out at Sleepy Hollow Steelhead Rearing Facility. I think, Larry, you were going to introduce this topic, and Thomas maybe weigh in at the end.
Yeah, okay, so this request to fund rehabilitation project at the Sleepy Hollow Rearing Channel. The scope of the project is to remove the aging pipeline liner, remove the drain underneath, remove the infrastructure along the channel. So there are a couple of, there's an air line and a water line. And then starting with the trenching underneath the channel, there'd be a 3-stage solution to dealing with the leakage that's caused by the aging liner. So first stage is to install a French drain and a perforated pipe. The second part of it is to add a solid drain. So that's actually the first part. Then the second part is to install waterproof concrete in the channel. And then on top of the concrete is to install an EPDM liner as the final step in addressing the leakage situation. And EPDM is kind of similar to PVC if you're familiar with PVC liners. There's just 2 different types of plastics. The EPDM is used for commonly used in ponds, and this is a good place to be putting a pond liner. Then there would be the air and the water lines would be installed, and then also a saltwater line would be added to help with disease control in the channel. So the district went out to bid almost 2 months ago for this project. It was advertised in eBid board. It was advertised 3 times in the Monterey County Weekly. About a half a dozen contractors, actually 6 contractors, showed up at the site visit. It's surprisingly good turnout. The district received 3 bids, one from Timon Construction, one from MPE, that's Monterey Peninsula Engineering, and one from Granite Rock. The Timon Construction bid was $643,000, so that was about $7,000 less than the lowest engineering estimate. The next highest bid was Monterey Peninsula Engineering at almost $300,000 more, and then Granite Rock came in at $1.1 million, so several $100,000 over the low bid. Timon Construction checks out. had high marks from the Napa County engineering manager. They've done 4 projects. One recently where, as I was speaking with the engineering manager, they were closing out the project. They indicated, or the engineering manager indicated, that the company worked good under time pressures in extreme circumstances, managing emergency types of projects. And the company has a pretty wide range of project experience, including both Class A general engineering projects and Class B, which are typically more associated with home building, and so more carpentry and framing type of projects. I did speak with the owner of the project, or I mean of the company, because you know, when you see a low bid that's $300,000 less than the next highest bid, you just got to question, well, was there a firm understanding of what was being bid? And he indicated that he was satisfied with his bid, and that he intends to make a profit on the job and intends to get the job done on time. So I have really no concerns about that lower bid. And I did see that the next 2 highest bidders, I mean, the other 2 bidders had some pretty high priced items, much higher than one would expect for this kind of work, for just a couple of line items. So
Mhm.
I think that's where the difference was, on just a couple of items between the contractors. So there is a recommendation that the board authorize $739,500 for the project. So that includes a 15% contingency. If that's approved, there would have to be a mid-year budget adjustment to add $34,500 into the line item. So $750,000 was budgeted in June for this project, but if this is approved, then an additional $34,500 would have to be approved at mid-year budget. And so I think that concludes what I'd say, and I'd be happy to take questions about the project and the bids.
I have a couple questions, Larry. So I was really amazed at the differences in some of these items, and you know, one of the big ones was item 5, the reinforced concrete slabs going from 50 to 75 to, is that the one that was 65? The biggest one was the EPDM liner from 65 to 120 and 43,000. So does that worry you that that's a lack of experience, this low bid, or does it?
Well, actually, the EPDM liner is broken up into 2 line items. There's EPDM that goes in the rearing channel pools, and
Yeah.
there is liner that goes in the riffles.
Right.
So the low bidders total for those 2 items was $110,000. And Granite Rock, through a subcontractor, bid 70,000 or 65,000, I
Yeah.
think. Whereas the MPE bid showed 240,000 when you combine the 2. So MPE went out to a Texas firm for that
Right.
EPDM liner. You know, you're right, there's a big difference in the 3 bids, but I did call another contractor who had done the work at Sleepy Hollow to do the liner in Pool 17, Scardina Construction. And I had even asked him to do a bid because he's familiar with the rearing channel and with doing this work. And he said he was too busy, but he said that he would have bid about $100,000 for the EPDM liner. So I asked
Okay.
the time in construction, well, you know, do you have experience with liners? And he said, yes, the company has installed pond liners in the past. And so it's a fairly straightforward technology. It's basically, it's almost like carpet laying. You cut the carpet to fit, and then in the case of the liner, you you overlap and tape it. If you use a PVC liner, you use a heat gun to make the overlaps. So I don't have any concerns about that aspect of the bid. I did see, for instance, I think Granite Rock had bid some phenomenal amount, a couple $100,000 to put cobble and rock back in
Yeah.
here.
That was the next one I saw. Yeah. That was a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, right. You know, and on the concrete item, you know, a lot of this is a pretty labor intensive project. So if a contractor thinks, hey, I got a good crew, they know what they're doing, I'm familiar with this work, then they can certainly come in and, you know, the materials cost isn't that great. It's the labor cost here. So I think that this is a smart contractor who has figured out how to get this done in an efficient way.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It just, there were so many differences. It was,
But if I may, ultimately, though, this is a bid, and the basis to disqualify would be if there was a non-responsive bid, or if the bidder is not responsible. And I haven't heard anything to suggest that this is a non-responsive bid, or that the bidder is not responsible. And as such, there's no discretion really, other than to award or discontinue the bid process.
no, it's great to get a lower bid from someone who has a good reputation. I'm just kind of amazed at how different they were.
Well, I will tell you one thing that came up after the bids were submitted. I got a call from one of the owners at Monterey Peninsula Engineering, Peter Taramina, who expressed some concern about the EPDM item and said that, you know, he had to go out and get a subcontractor and bid it for $240,000 in order to meet what he stated was the bid specification. The bid specification was the only thing required, absolutely a shall, was that the bidder be a Class A licensed contractor in California. And then there were some should things in there. And so one of the things that would be nice to have, you always want to get experience, was to say that the contractor should have some experience with putting in an EPDM liner. Well, this contractor didn't list that experience, but he described similar experience in a follow-up. And so as far as I'm concerned, he met all of the requirements of that bid. And the fact that he didn't have a subcontractor doing the EPDM work, to me, is not, it was just a matter of, it would have been nice to have it, but not required.
Okay.
Well, through the chair, if I may, this 96,500 contingency, if he messed it up out there, do we use that money on that? Or do we fix it on his own? Because anytime you put a nice contingency in there, well, we can go out there and screw it up and then we can ask for some more money. And that's why I'm concerned about this contingency that you put in there on this project. So
No,
could you answer that? Go ahead.
Sorry. No, the contingency is not to deal with the line items within the bid. The contingency is to deal with unforeseen circumstances. So for example, we don't know what's happened underneath the rearing channel as a result of water leaking out. I just don't know what to expect. I mean, I'm thinking we're just gonna hit silt and sand and that's it, but I don't know. There's also the question of access in and out of the project during the winter. In heavy rains, that road has slides on it almost every time it rains hard. We may have to have work done in order to maintain access to the project. So, you know, the things that the contingency is for unknowns, things that are not described in the bid or specifications, things that are outside the control of the contractor. If the contractor messes up, he has to redo, and he doesn't get paid any extra.
Okay, good, Larry, but here's the big question. You gonna be around to see this one through? Or it goes to Marine Hamilton? so she have to take the smoke on this. So I know you leaving. So are you gonna be around to hear my mouth, or Maureen got to get prepared to hear it? Hey,
Right?
Um, well, the schedule here allows for this work to be done between about mid-January, and it has to be completed by mid-May. If the work can't fit in that window, it's going to have to be put off for a year. If that happens, no, I won't be a contract employee with the district at that point.
oh, okay, well, get ready, Maureen. Why did we wait so late on this one? How come when you were replacing the ponds out there, we couldn't do this at the same time?
Well, that's a great question. At the time of the facility upgrade, the facility hadn't been run in several years. It wasn't run when San Clemente Dam was taken down, and then we had the project come in, and they didn't run the facility while the project was under construction. So it was when the facility upgrade came online and they started operating, they started seeing a lot more holes in the liner. Beverly has patched the holes over the last 15 years or so that she can find. But the liner is deteriorating, and once full operations went into effect, it was apparent that the liner was compromised. And so
Okay.
it did take some time to come up with, okay, well, what's the solution here? And so we pushed forward as quickly as we could with the solution and came up with this particular solution. And we got the design done through Tetra Tech, and it's hard to get people to do design work in a timely fashion. A lot of consultants are really busy. So we brought this online as soon as we could. It's a good window of opportunity to do this. But like I say, if we can't get in and do this work starting mid-January, it would have to be pushed off to another year. And then there would be the risk of more failure of the liner.
Well, the thing about that too, isn't the rainy season, it started now and probably go through May or April at the most? And my final question to you too on that one too is this the last major project that needs to be done out there that's going to cost us over $500,000?
Okay, as far as working in the rainy season, it has to be done during the rainy season because that's when the rearing channel is shut down. So once the river reconnects to the lagoon, a couple of weeks later, fish will start to be relocated out of the facility. And after a couple of more weeks, the facility will be shut down. That's the time when we can do the work. And as far as actually working in the rainy season, the site's not bad. I mean, every once in a while you get a heavy rain and you get some mud on the road and you get some mud at the site. But the contractor that did the facility upgrade worked throughout the winter of 2019, which was a really wet winter, except for maybe 1 week when it just poured rain. They didn't get into the site and work. So I don't have any concerns about working in the rainy season. In fact, if it rains a lot, that's to our benefit because then that extends the time before you have to start operating the facility. So if we get a really wet year, then they won't start rescuing fish maybe until July. And so that would allow construction to go on a little bit longer. As far as, is this the last project?
Last
Mr.
major
Edwards? I believe this is the last project that you will have me requesting money for. Over $500,000.
So it's something else that we'll look forward to next year, huh? Okay.
No, as far as I know, once this is done, that facility is going to be up to snuff and probably good for a real long time. You should just be doing, you should just see maintenance and not any major rehabilitation of this kind of magnitude.
Thank you. I'm going to miss you, but thank you. That's all I have on that one.
So I just
Sarah?
want to, I just want to thank you also, Larry, for answering your patience in answering all our questions on the contingency. It seems to me, under the circumstances, the 15% contingency, it makes sense because of the unknowns that you explained. And I'm ready to support that we recommend approval.
So real quick, this is Thomas. I also want to update the board on a side conversation that has been kind of on and off for several years. So that if you hear of it, or if people ask you questions about it, you'll understand what it is. Basically, the Water District and the Steelhead Association, we get along and we do work together, but sometimes we don't always agree. And the Steelhead Association would like, they wrote us a letter once they heard of this project, and they want us to consider circular tanks instead of a rearing channel. That being said, the district has done the design for a rearing channel. This is a repair of an existing rearing channel, and this has come up before in the past. And I just want to let the board know that it's come up again. And we have a meeting this Thursday with NOAA Fisheries to talk about the Steelhead Association's request and their concerns of rearing channel versus tanks. They basically contend that water quality and disease is easier to contain in tanks. And we contend that we like the rearing channel for the way it produces a more kind of natural wild type steelhead for release when the river comes back. So we are confident that we can kind of transcend our differences of opinions. We also have done many things that the Steelhead Association has requested, a part of their original request, which is the installation of UV, better water temperature control, and also filtration. So what's going to happen is we're meeting first with regulatory agencies, and then we're going to have a meeting with them as well as with the Steelhead Association, because NOAA Fisheries, who's in charge of recovery of endangered species, wants to allow the Steelhead Association to have a chance to discuss their concerns with us and them. And then we'll all move on after that discussion, but we'll keep you updated if anything changes. And we just wanted you to know about that in case somebody brings it up at a meeting or on the side.
Well, should we wait until you have that meeting? This starting to remind me of a problem that we got now. That one public agency says one thing, and then another public agency try to dump on them so they can make the big correction. That's what I'm concerned about right there.
Yeah,
So go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, we should proceed with this project. This is what I'll call a renewal and replacement or large scale maintenance project. We're not going to redesign the facility. We've got no budget to redesign the facility. We think our results are pretty admirable with the existing facility, and the upgrades that have been made in terms of temperature control and water quality with UV and so forth address many of the concerns. So there's, my bottom line is no, we're not going to change circular tanks. We're not going to embrace a large scale construction project that would be required to do circular tanks. We're actually hitting the point where we should be monitoring the watershed to find out impacts of lower withdrawals. This is the very first year Cal-Am's going to be within their legal limit. And we need to monitor the watershed for 5 to 10 years to see what the impacts are, not redesign into, circular tanks, which are much more like a hatchery system than a fish rearing, rescue and rearing facility. So the answer to them will be, we have no budget for a complete overhaul. We've got limited space. We're not going to operate and construct a different facility when we're in a complete changeover and withdrawals on the river that need to be monitored.
Okay, so we're going to stick to our guns on this. That's what I'm hearing right now.
We're just trying to do it nicely so that they can be heard.
Well, when you tell me it ain't no nice in it. It's just a big no.
Yeah, it is a big no. Honestly, it's a big no.
Okay,
It sounds like you don't have any, there aren't any problems that they can really point to, any deficiencies in the job that is happening right now at the fishery,
Well,
right?
our mortality rate is pretty low,
Yeah.
and the changes that Larry and Bev have overseen that Thomas was referring to are only going to make things better.
Mhm.
So
Great.
it's not provably broken, and in fact, it's provably successful.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Thank you. That's great. Well, I look forward to seeing this happen.
I appreciate the heads up.
Yeah,
Good call.
thank you, Thomas.
I
we
believe you
have a
need a
motion?
motion.
Yeah, we do.
I think Karen's moved to approve. If she did, I'll second it. And let's ask the public out there, do they have any comments?
Okay, Sarah, would you like to ask the public, please?
Yes, members of the public, if you wish to make any comments, please use the raised hand icon. Chair Anderson, I see no raised hands.
Thank you. So we're ready for a vote then.
Okay, Director Edwards,
Approval?
Director Paul,
Yes,
Chair Anderson,
Yes,
motion passes 3-0.
thank you.
All right, thank you. See you later.
Good luck, Larry. Bye.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much.
All right, this next item, believe, John, are you going to introduce this one, or is it Thomas?
No, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. Members of the committee. This item is to purchase field uniforms, kind of button-up uniforms, kind of worker wear, the type you see PG&E or Cal-Am wearing for our workers. Across Thomas's and my division, there are 10 employees that we've identified that have significant field duties that are out and interacting with many other entities, you know, some of which we have listed out as, you know, Cal-Am, Monterey One Water. We're on their property, helping them operate. Maureen and I are out helping them with their well field. We're out helping them sample for their permits, for their waste discharge permits compliance. We're interacting with Monterey County Environmental Health and of course our regulators and Department of Drinking Water. And there's been some confusion as we start interacting with more of these people, with our employees that are out working on these facilities being in street clothes. I've had kind of enforcement unit of Cal-Am called on me a couple times when I've been out working on some of these wells, where they were if they were able to look right at us and see what organization we were representing out there, we feel that would be a better case for us. And another case that we have is when we were running our metering program, which is meters on every private well in the district. Often the mechanism that we use for that is we send out a mailer every year, and if we don't receive the mailer back, we'll follow back up. And it happens quite often every year, in fact, that there's been a change of ownership. And so now we don't have the contact information of the new owner, or maybe we'll have just their address, but we don't have their email address. We don't have a way to communicate with them to tell them, hey, you need to enroll your well in this program. So often we will park outside. This happens a lot in Carmel Valley. We'll have to go out and park outside of a keyed gate system, and we'll have to use the service entry and walk up and ring their door. And so in that type of case where we've already branded our trucks so people can see what we are, it's kind of taking that branding out past when our employees get out of their trucks and start walking and entering people's properties. And you know, we do go through them and introduce ourselves, and then we have a form that we fill out and say, if you'd like us to if you'd like us to enter your property and read your meter for us, draw on your property where you want us to go, tell us how you want us to do this. But often when we do that, there's situations where you have a groundskeeper or you have somebody that's curating that property that they haven't been told that. And so just kind of that we feel that these types of uniforms would kind of alleviate some of those confusions that we're encountering. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Do you have badges?
We do have, we don't have badges. We have what are called employee cards with our pictures on it that states who we work for. And so we do have those. But we also have our cards that we have. I leave, if I can't get a hold of somebody, I have door knocker that I'll put on there. If they're not home, I'll put a door knocker on their thing and say, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of you. I'll come back and try again, or you can call me. But yeah, we actually do have some fleeces that were purchased. I can't remember, Dave, that's probably 3 years ago now, about 3 years ago. And they are helpful, but they're wearing out at this point in time. And so, ironically, when I'm out doing field work and in the field and interacting with the public, I'm not wearing my nicest clothes. So we often look like it could be not vagrant, but just
Related, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't want to say too much because Tim O'Halloran's listening in, but this uniform, a sport coat, is highly recognizable as like, oh, okay, you must have a reason for being here. Just walk on by. So I have been on properties without district identification where it just looks like I'm supposed to be there. It also worked with gate guards in Tehama and Montera and so forth. So, it's sometimes no identification is just as powerful as identification.
Yeah, maybe it depends who you are, what you look like.
Yeah.
Well, I
Thank you,
think a lot
Karen.
of
Thank
people
you,
know what you
Karen.
look like, Dave.
Yeah. Well, question, when you're dealing with uniforms, I'm hearing about the top, the shirt, the hat. Now, what about the pants?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Oh, I had not envisioned pants. It's not meant to supply the district employees with a full uniform, but more of an identifying garment. So it's not meant to supply pants. It's if your pants rip when you're working at the district, you got to go buy new pants. So
Well, when you get into uniforms, that's the problem. The military, even in public service, you tear your pants, you expect the company or the station to fix it. And that brings us to another problem. Future uniform allowance. Maybe I grow out my shirt. Who's going to replace it for me?
I do. That is a great point. We were envisioning placing that. This would be an initial investment to stock the employees, but there would be a smaller but line item budget, much like we do for field waders, rain slickers, polarized glasses for people that are helping with fish rescues. So kind of that model that we already use for some of our other equipment. So I wouldn't think of it as equipment, but more just, we would encourage employees, if you're working on other people's properties where they have facilities that they own, you would wear something that identifies you as being affiliated with the district and with where we have agreements to be on those pieces of property.
Okay, are those 10 individuals in the union of the district?
There are union members.
Okay, so watch out.
Yeah. We have repurchased, John mentioned fleeces. We've done repurchasing on that. We've got hats available for the guys out in the field with the logo and so forth. And we've made multiple purchases of that. So we've had a little bit of this going on already. So
Okay, oh, okay, that's fine.
Nobody's asked us to contract with Mission Linen for, the weekly uniform cleaning.
All right,
Well, it makes sense to me. I know when people come up to my property, besides having a white poodle being a ferocious guard dog, I like to see who they're working for, if they're gonna come up to my door and my house isn't really visible from the road. So I get it. Any other questions from the committee?
Not for me.
Okay. Should we go out
I
for the
move
walk?
approval.
Second,
Let's see if anybody has anything to say about this.
Chair Anderson, I see no raised hands.
Okay. All right, so let's take a vote. Thank you.
Director Paul,
yes.
Director Edwards,
Yes,
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
I'm
All
sorry,
right.
this next item, item 4, will also be John Lear.
Uh-huh.
This got its start back during the infamous Brugnara water rights discussion with a creek that feeds the Pajaro River. And frankly, I decided that I'd really like to see an upgrade in our interface between data that we have and how we make it available. But with that, John, I'll let you brief them on what this is.
Okay, thanks, Dave. If
Anyhow.
it pleases the chair, if I could share my screen, that would probably just demonstrating what Dave's talking about and kind of the path to where we're going would be the easiest for me to
Sure.
communicate this. Okay, thank you.
I think it's very exciting.
Okay,
Cool.
so there, can you see my screen? No.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, great. So currently, this is our website. And on our website, there's a tab that says environmental stewardship. And you have different data that you can interact with. We
Mhm.
have rainfall data where you can click in it, and we have our rainfall stations, and you can go to water year and get the data, and for previous water years, and for the current water year, you can get the data. And this is a daily time step from midnight to midnight. And you can also get a rainfall chart current. But these are flat files. We go to our Carmel River Basin, and you can navigate, and you can go and you can look at below Los Padres, and you can see what the daily average flows were. You can see a plot of the last 7 to 8 days. And so you can march through these down the river and see what the river is doing. This is currently updated hourly. It's updated through scripts and the current software that we have. But if you want past data, you have to go to the side, and you have to then select a past data, and it comes only in this format, which is a United States Geological Survey format. It doesn't come in running totals. If someone wants a running total of a past data, they have to contact one of our hydrologists, and then we have to go in and create them on a case-by-case basis. And so we were doing this and getting the data out, these data for Highway 1, for example, anything that's in our ASR operating permits, we're using these real time. The fish rescues are using this real time. Our hydrologists are using these data real time to understand what's happening in the watershed, so they know where to go measure. And we had envisioned with the upgrade of the telemetry of all the stations to bring them all in. Currently, we have telemetry only to the stations listed. And the stations that are listed are specific and called out in our permits, so that our ASR permits. So that's why these were chosen. But there's no reason why all of them can't be telemetered. And last year we spent the budget and we budgeted and purchased, and now we have the inventory and stock, and we're going through systematically and upgrading the gauges and getting them to telemeter in. There was a desire internally to bring all of this data to one dashboard, and where members of the district could look at it and use it on an hourly basis to help guide their decisions. But then, as Dave stated, we were doing some research and we came across this. So this is the Valley Waters data porthole, where it's a scrollable, scalable map. It has real time. You can go 1 hour at a time. You can go year to date, where it will toggle through. You can see the reservoirs. You can see it has reservoir where you can look at stage or storage, where you can see right now there's 804 acre feet in the Almond Reservoir. Below, they're currently releasing 2.3 cubic feet per second, and you can click on this and go into it and customize your date ranges, and then you can kick this out as a data request in a running Excel file or text file. So this would also help us to save time working through data requests. And so we reached out. Dave did say, hey, how come ours doesn't look like this? So we did reach out to we have some friends, hydrologists are friends across districts. And so we have some friends on our staff that work on their staff. And we were able to get in contact and get this estimate. And like I said, from the people that built this for them, and it would be a database that the district can outward facing database that the district can host itself and point itself and have a data porthole like this with all of our data on it. And it can also, as the district is moving towards interactive GIS, this will be, you could fold this into any interactive GIS maps that the districts are building, as well as kind of live data. Another thing about this is you can set thresholds if you're interested in personal thresholds and notifications, as far as you want to see different flows at different times or different rainfall intensities. This will be able to notify you as well. So where we had put money aside to build something internally, kind of our eyes were opened when we saw this, and we saw that in our opinion, this is much better and public facing as well. And so kind of adding up the individual items as far as new licenses, custom scripts that we were going to have our consultant write, and that we found that we were just shy of just over $3,000 to kind of shift and move in this direction. So and I do know, Director Alvin, that people coming and asking for more money is something that you don't like to be caught surprised by. So I do apologize for that, but I also do kind of see this as a slight change in direction from where we were headed as well. So that would be kind of the explanation I would offer for that.
So if I may, through the chair, so in the next 6 months, you won't come back to us and say, well, I found something a little bit better. Are you ready to live with this?
I am. Yes, this is kind of exciting to get this out, and I think that it makes the district look as if it's kind of on the forefront of sharing data with the public. And so I think this is, frankly, the technology we're using is probably 15 years old right now, and this brings us current.
Okay. That's all I got for you. I ain't no need trying to beat you down today. Y'all find something else.
May I ask, who sends us data requests? For the data?
Often it comes out of the CSUMB graduate laboratories, where they'll be interested in looking at different time series data. They're interested in data that are hourly instead of daily. They're interested in just something that's not available directly to them. We also get requests from regulators, fisheries agencies, different things like that. I know that Cal-Am uses our data and would use this to operate their releases from Los Padres. And so often the fisheries agencies or the water rights group are asking for these flows so they can double check if we're diverting on days we're not supposed to. Things of that nature.
Thank you.
It seems to me that the potential time saving for your staff is huge. Is that right?
I think it would be helpful. I think it in the matter of just a few handful of data requests, the extra money would be realized, I believe.
And it's something that you would look at, your staff would look at on a regular basis to figure out where you're going to go out and check something.
Even more so that it will do, this software has the capability, because when you build a streamflow record, you're reconstructing a 15-minute record based on observations that of what the stream was doing when you were able to observe it. There are different thresholds of flow that you're more confident in because you have more observations during those thresholds of flow. This would be able to set up and have notifications to say, Don Juan is at a flow threshold where you only have a few measurements, and help guide us to actually get our all of our stream flow records, more measurements in areas where we're somewhat lacking them.
Would it have any kind of impact on any kind of ASR activity or not? Is it not directly related to that?
It would be directly related to that, only in the way that everybody would be operating from the same data set. We have pre-season meetings, ASR season meetings, to get on the same page. And so we would identify the gauges that we're going to use and the thresholds and the gauges that we're going to use, and we can see, because as of now, I can see, because I can look under the hood of what we have, I can see a more updated set of data, where this would serve out that more updated set of data to all of our collaborators. And so in working with Cal-Am and starting to, it typically comes when we get our first couple rainstorms and the watershed gets saturated. Then we get a good rainstorm that will fill and spill Los Padres Reservoir. With this really real time, we can watch this translation of this flood wave down the Carmel River. It usually takes about a day, or just slightly less, to get from Los Padres down to the mouth of the river. Once that happens, we need to average over the thresholds, a daily average over the thresholds in our permits. So being able to watch this and kind of pencil out and say, we all can see tomorrow is the day that we will average above this. Tomorrow is our first day of diversion. We can start getting ready a couple days before that and really understand what's happening. It's helpful in that. It's also helpful in estimating out towards the end of an ASR season. We'll start saying, Dave will start asking me, where do we think we're going to end up this season? And so it's helpful for me to have that, to do those estimates, and to have everybody else to be able to see the data I'm using when I'm putting out. I think we have 7 days left of injection if we don't get any more rain and stuff of that nature.
John, that's very helpful, because I know that's something people are always, hoping to get more of. And if you can get prepared ahead of time, great. So the cost estimate is $27 3,730, and that's just that much above what's already in the budget.
Yeah, we had, it's 3,730.
Hmm.
So I had about 24,000 as a placeholder based
Mhm.
on conversations and the reason what that $24,000 was in there for was the program we use to house our data is called Hydestra, and it's a program that is about $16,000 for a license of Hydestra, and the dashboard that we were going to require us to purchase yet another license of Hydestra. This approach, and then pay for the rest of the monies in specialized coding and website building, and then how we wanted our dashboard to be laying out. This actually, when you sum all of the monies and tasks that we had planned up, you have $24,000, and then the estimate that we received from the Tierra plan,
Airplane, yeah.
yeah, was $3,730 over the 24,000 we had already kind of put aside to get this functionality. So it's kind of shifting gears, realizing there's something better, and then it's about $4,000 more to kind of get something that's not just usable to the district staff, but
Mhm.
facing out to the public.
Any more
Yeah.
questions from?
Yes, Chair,
Yeah.
thank you. The licensing of this, is that yearly? And how much it costs if we have to, since you brought it up?
Sure. Actually, this the scripts that we already have that are pulling daily data out, or sorry, hourly data out of Hydestra that are being used to make the flat images that we have on our website now, that license can be used. So we would not need to purchase an additional license. So there would not be annual licensing fees. There would be hosting and we can host it on our cloud, which is something Suresh directed me to the direction Suresh wanted to go with that.
Sound good. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's, if you don't have any other questions from the board members, let's go out to the public, please, Sarah.
Yes. I see no raised hands, Chair Anderson.
Thank you.
I'll move approval.
I second that.
Okay, let's have a vote.
Director Paul,
Yes.
Director Edwards,
Yes,
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
All right, our next item will be Suresh, and in conjunction with this, Suresh, can you give us kind of an update on the audit and when we will play catch up on the remainder of the treasurer's reports?
Sure. So this is the July Treasurer's Report. Typically it takes us about 3 months to close June because it relates to the audit process. So that's why typically July is about 3 to 4 months delayed. And then when we do July, we generally do July, August together. Unfortunately, this time we couldn't do August. We had some issues where August financial statements were not being balanced out. So we had to delay August. That's going to come out next month, August and September, and the quarterly report as well. The audit is progressing right now. We are planning on seeing the draft probably around the end of November, right after the Thanksgiving holidays. And then the board will get to see the draft in December and approve or accept the CAFR, or not CAFR, but the ACFA report, which is the financial report at the December board meeting. With that said, so the July Treasurer's Report, we wrote checks in the amount of a little over 2.4, close to $2.5 million for the month, July 1st to July 31st. The Treasurer's Report Exhibit 5A, which is the next report attached to the staff report. You'll see we started the the month with $21.6 million in the bank, and we finished the month with 19.8. Typically, we'll go through the series of months, July through November, where you're going to see declining cash balance, and simply because we don't get our water supply revenue or property tax revenue until December. The first batch of collection comes in December. So you'll go through a series of first 5 months where you'll see balance go down. And then in December, you'll see the balance pop back up again, because we're going to get about 60% of our revenues for both water supply and the property tax. So it shows we had the checking account balance, money market, and then LAIF, and then also the multi-bank securities account where we stagger our CDs. So all in all, our total was $19.8 million when we closed July. And then exhibits 5B, C, and D are basically the disbursement report for the regular checks, payroll checks, and then D is the unaudited financial statement. So with that, any questions?
Do interest rates have anything to do with these accounts? Are with the Fed? Are we hurting, or are we doing good?
We're doing really good, because now we've started getting more CDs, and that's in the multi-bank securities account. LAIF's going to catch up later. LAIF's got a long-term interest rate, so it takes a long time to go down. Also takes a very long time for it to go up. Right now, for example, on a CD, we're getting on average about, if you buy a CD today, you'll be getting somewhere close to, on a 5-year CD, about 5%. If you look at LAIF, LAIF's only going to be paying you about 1.4% right now. That's because it's a long-term strategy for LAIF, where, like I said, takes a long time to dip down, but then also on the rise, it takes quite a while. So we've started, initially about 6 months, 9 months ago, we had some CDs in the range of about close to a 1%. Since then, we've invested into some other CDs. And so we've got some over 4% CDs, some in 3.5 range CDs. So yeah, the interest rate is really helping us again, as it did about a couple of years ago.
Okay, thank you.
I move we recommend adoption.
A second.
I guess
Is
we
go out for comment?
Chair Anderson, I see no raised hands.
Thank you. Okay, let's have a vote.
Director Paul,
yes.
Director Edwards,
Yes.
Chair Anderson.
Yes,
Motion passes 3-0.
All right, items 6 and 7 are informational only. Unless you've got a question, we can move on to item 8.
yeah.
Okay, moving on to item 8, I just want to highlight a couple of expected changes to the board agenda. But on my way there, I want to point out you've got 2 items on closed session, an update on the taxpayers lawsuit, as well as a potential opportunity to execute the water purchase agreement, but at least an update on what is going on with that. I believe the date of our meeting precedes the business meeting, yeah, it does, of the commission. So
I believe that there's going to be a third closed session item on discussing performance of some.
oh, that's right, that was
manager.
just added today. Yep.
Yes, on advice of counsel, we decided to add that. That's good timing, and it enables us to get the input of the outgoing board members, 2 board members who.
Sure.
Keeping
Sure.
I'm sorry, would you repeat what that was? I didn't quite catch it.
Of the starting of the
performance evaluation of the general manager.
Thank you.
yep.
In that closed session, Mr. Laredo, we cannot talk about November 17th Coastal Commission meeting. We have to
That's
do
correct.
that.
That is not on the agenda.
Okay, but if we want to talk about it, how do we get it there?
Well,
Or do
we
have to
are.
be in public?
I don't believe that you can discuss that in closed session because we are not a party to that case.
Okay.
if you want to make it a public discussion, we can either add it to the general manager's report or make it a discussion item.
Well, I like, some comments from where the district is going on the 17th.
Yeah.
So that if just to let the public know that we're in this thing. So
Yep.
that's all, just be able to make a comment. You or the chair or somebody, I might let loose or something.
So if Dave, if you include it in your
Yeah,
GM,
it could go under item 8.
Yeah, please.
I wanted to highlight that right after item 6, Joel put in a line spacing, but we have a presentation to the outgoing directors.
yes,
I know you wanted to see that. And then we're going to add 2 action items. One is for a project that will have reimbursement that was not ready to go for today's Finance and Administration Committee meeting. So it'll just go to the full board as an action item. And then the second is
reimbursement for what?
from California American Water. It's related to the fixing of the release mechanism at Los Padres Dam.
Thanks.
I don't know, what's the proper term, Maureen?
Los Padres Dam outlet modifications,
Outlet release mechanism.
and it's for
Whatever.
the CEQA work related to get
Yeah.
that off the ground.
Yep.
So will
So
that
that'll
be,
be added as an action item. And then approval of amendment number 7 to the cost sharing agreement on Pure Water Monterey will be added, which will enable us to receive $1.5 million of reimbursement from grant proceeds. We've been counting on that reimbursement to balance our budget. And Monterey One Water is now getting in a position where they can move that money from their bank account to our bank account.
great.
Yep. Free money. Well, it wasn't free. We worked
Yeah.
hard to get it, but
It's fine.
yeah. So anyway, that'll be added as an action item.
Good.
And that's it.
Director Edwards, anything more you think should be added to the?
Closed session? No.
No,
That's,
any of the agenda.
if anything, a quick update on what we got going to court and what's not in court, or when we're going to get there, so that's all I see.
Yep.
I guess that will be in the district council report.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Just for the public, bring them up, because they always asking.
Sounds good.
All
And
right,
that brings us to the any items to be placed on a future agenda, which usually results in nothing because this is kind of a self-populating agenda for finance and administration.
Yeah.
we
I
depend,
haven't,
All right,
on your good hand.
I have no comments. to
great.
that.
Thank you, everybody.
Hey, Karen, can you stay on for like 2 minutes? I just want to show you something left over.
I want to say it too. All right, bye.
Yeah, that's all right. We had one of our ex parte meetings today, and
Sarah, let me go downstairs and I'll show you how to lock this meeting up. So that way no members of the public could hear or join in.
and we'll say our goodbyes to Tim.
Tim O'Halloran.
Yeah. Well, there we go. So I'm going to quickly share. So this is what's making me crazy. One of many things, right?
I'm supposed to get off, aren't I?
Yeah, you can either way.
Okay.
So just symptomatic. So when we were talking about this table up here, when we kind of ended our discussion.
So Amy knows, we just had a meeting, right before this meeting, we had an ex parte meeting with Coastal Commissioner Padilla.
Okay, yeah, I saw that you had a meeting with that person, but I didn't know what about.
We were talking about
And-
supply and
Yeah, and unfortunately, staff has ignored the demand numbers that we have used, that Peter Mayer, the consultant for Marina Coast, has used, and so forth. And they put these demand numbers in here. But what I'm beginning to discover is at the simplest, bare bones level, we still have problems in the way people think. So in this line, you see this is supply. So we're on the supply side now.
Mhm.
Table
Everybody-
6.
Yep, table 6. Everybody keeps counting Sand City D-cell at 94 acre feet. And that's because when the plant at 300 acre feet was established, we know it's never produced that. I think we're carrying it at 210 acre feet per year. But CalAm has said, oh, but 94 acre feet was originally designated to the benefit of the river, and the city of Sand City has claims on everything else for their future development. Therefore, we're only going to count 94 acre feet as available from the Sand City desal plant on the supply side. Back on the demand numbers, residential demand includes population within Sand City, and non-residential demand includes commercial growth within Sand City. And this is why I keep saying that if you're going to include the overall growth of the community, including Sand City's commercial growth, you need to include the full resource of the supply. You can't have one without the other.
Mhm.
So if you were going to say, oh, Sand City's remaining, you know, if you wanted to max it out, you'd say the remaining 206 acre feet, that's theirs for their own growth. Then you'd have to go back up into the demand side and take out 206 acre feet. This is symptomatic of a bigger issue, which is, you know, includes the Malpaso water and remodels and so forth. We have folks, and this includes now Public Advocate's Office, who have also selectively taken a smaller piece of the supply, but included all of the demand. And you can't do that. They have to match. And so
Mhm.
I just wanted to point out that if these folks can't get past the very simple mathematics of, if you show a demand, you got to show the full supply, or if you discount the supply, you have to discount the demand. And if you don't get that, you're never going to get all the rest of this on, am I double counting? Am I not double counting? Is RENA in? Is RENA out? You know, it's just, we can't win, I guess is what I'm saying. Is we just can't get past these little simple things.
do we need a new slide that shows what is included in AMBAG's growth forecast?
Well, now here's another problem area. And I walked AMBAG through their own documents with the city of Monterey's reps last week. And what we have discovered is AMBAG projects growth in population, jobs, and housing units. And then they take that big estimate and they push it down into the sub-jurisdictions. The housing units that they pushed into the 6 Monterey cities don't match the RENA number, even though, well, here, I'll just do it.
You mean they're less than the RENA number?
Yeah, they're less than the RENA number. And I said, well, guys, well, let me just quickly take you there. Okay, so here's the RENA plan, right? And the total in Monterey County is about 20,295. And then in the plan itself, it says AMBAG releases May of 2022, AMBAG releases final 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan accommodating RENA. So it uses a word saying our other plan is going to accommodate this RENA. Then that plan, which is their 25-year forecast, says we included an updated RENA, the 6-cycle housing needs, and that the 2 counties have enough housing capacity to accommodate the RENA allocations. The allocations do not exceed forecasted growth and can be accommodated through infill. That's great too. And then we go to the housing units table, and it's sourced from the regional growth forecast. And this is a little fuzzy, and I apologize for that.
Is that this table 4?
That's this, table 1-3 here.
No,
So
we're-
this is from the Metropolitan Transportation Plan.
I'm not sure what you're looking at, Dave.
Yeah, I've
Oh,
got a
you're not
table
seeing
4
my
up here.
screen?
I'm not seeing what you're looking at.
Oh. I wonder
I've just
why.
got table 4 on page 145.
Oh, so, okay, so my screen didn't change. Let me stop share. And I totally messed that one up, so I'm going to go back to the beginning. Now do you see this?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is what we walked AMBAG through their own documents. So they did this 6-cycle housing plan,
mm-hmm.
adds up to 20,295 for Monterey County. And in it, it says in May of 2022, AMBAG releases its final Metropolitan Transportation Plan accommodating RENA. So the 6-cycle RENA plan says you are going to also adopt a plan that accommodates these numbers. And lo and behold, they did. Here's their Monterey County 2045 forecast. And it says it includes an updated RENA, the 6-cycle regional housing needs determination.
Dave, when they say accommodating RENA, do they mean building all of the RENA, satisfying the RENA numbers during that?
Satisfying the RENA numbers, being consistent with. And so then they get into the plan and they say it includes, which is different than accommodates, the updated RENA, and they cite the 6 cycles. So we're telling AMBAG, hey, your document says you've included it. And then they have this statement down here that says that both these counties have enough capacity to accommodate the RENA allocations. The allocations don't exceed the forecasted growth and can be accommodated through infill. Again, another implication that the RENA housing numbers are in there.
Hmm.
But then we went and we looked at the tables in their executive summary, and we found that, yes, the tables of population, this one, housing units, and job growth are exactly identical to the tables that are in the regional growth forecast, and that's how they source it here. And the total additions in housing of 26,151 actually exceeds that 20,295 in the RENA plan. So that's good. That would lead you to say, well, RENA is less than the forecast, so therefore RENA is included.
Wait, what explains the difference between those two numbers?
That's about
So
6.
what they said was that our population forecasting model is really good, and the way that AMBAG does its reality check is if the population forecast over this longer period, this 25-year period, exceeds their RENA number, then they feel kind of good about that. And so that's kind of a cross check. But basically, this meeting resulted in a confession from AMBAG that, well, our assumptions are different when we do the RENA numbers than when we do the regional growth forecast, which is why if you were to add up the housing units added for just the 6 cities on the Monterey Peninsula, which are hard to do in this fuzzy chart, but anyway, these come out to about 4,400 housing units, and the RENA number comes out to 6,188. And we said, so this is a district talking. We said, so when we discovered this, we said, well, the population forecast model has been touted as very accurate. You're now confessing that you're different in your assumptions for the RENA allocation. We got to pick one. Either you're telling us that you're off in both the housing and therefore your population is off, or you're telling us your population can be trusted and your individual allocation of housing to the sub-jurisdictions is off. And their answer is, well, the housing, they're two different things. They're two different things. So it wasn't a complete mea culpa, but what we've learned is if you add these numbers up, they don't add up to the RENA number. And so there is a bit of a disconnect. So what I've been doing now, but I looked at it, and the difference over the cycle, over the whole period, is we've said you need 18.0 acre feet per year for people. And if you did it based on housing, with what the fixture unit count would be for this 4 categories of housing, it comes out to about 22 acre feet per year. So it's not enough to make a difference in our forecast, but it's enough to no longer be able to, with a clear conscience, say what's in AMBAG and what's out of AMBAG, because AMBAG doesn't even know what's in and what's out, because they've so tightly footnoted, like all of these sources are from the regional growth forecast. And this document says it includes the 6th cycle of AMBAG, of RENA. And so they're all very, pointing at each other, consistent with each other, but they're not actually perfectly consistent with each other. And that was our discussion with them. But the regional growth forecast, again, has enough housing in it that it exceeds the RENA number. So at the high level, it is safe to say RENA is inside the growth forecast. It's just down at the sub-jurisdictional level, it doesn't quite add up the right way. And we've agreed to do nothing about it, I guess, at this point.
Well,
And
they
so was
don't
it
see it as
out of-
something,
Go ahead, Karen.
they don't see it as something that they need to correct. They see it as something that is logical.
Yeah, they still view it all as internally consistent, which is fine for us. I view it as we had to pick between population and housing, and we went with population, which either means that their population wasn't quite right, or it means that the number of people per resident is going to be a different number, a lower number. So it would come out to about 1.5 based on the population forecast and the housing forecast for RENA. Whereas, previously it's usually been about 2.3 across the whole area. But you could make the case that, a lot of this new housing is going to be single occupancy or double occupancy, not full families, because you're building smaller units and, apartments to be affordable, but some of them will be, 4 people in them. And so I just want you to know there's a disconnect between how they allocate down to the cities and what they said in RENA versus what they actually say in all these reports where, oh yeah, RENA's involved, and they'll tell you that the Senate bill made the regional growth forecast and RENA happen on the same cycle now, so that you always have them together, and they're supposed to be vetted together, but there's this one little piece. So kind of going back to what you said, should we just say what's in AMBAG and what's not? We're no longer at the place where we can do so.
So how does this discrepancy affect the demand forecast?
Really doesn't, and that's the issue. If it would add about 120 acre feet of more demand if we took the housing numbers and got rid of the population numbers. Or conversely, if we just rely on the population numbers and ignore the disconnect between housing units, then we're 120 acre feet lower over 30 years. So it's really not enough to move the needle, but it's enough to not get into the conversation. Because, well, you told me RENA is included. Well, AMBAG said RENA is included until Hans really asked the question 3 or 4 different ways. And then AMBAG said, well, yeah, maybe we didn't see that. Now poor AMBAG, they've gotten more attention as a result of this stuff than they ever have. And I pointed out that they've got one chart where they completely muffed up the city of Delray Oaks numbers. And lo and behold, they looked at it and said, oh, that's not right. I said, well, I sent you an email 2 months ago, and I thought you would have corrected it. So they know that there's a little more attention. So they've kind of, I won't say backpedaled, but they felt really compelled to say, our assumptions for RENA allocation are different than our regional growth forecast assumptions. So you can get a slightly different result.
So Dave, so you're in the role of expert witness. So just a way to present the information that's truthful, it doesn't hide anything. And, maybe, I frankly did not follow all of this very well, but, I get the big picture. If there's a way to say, if you calculate it this way, this would be the demand forecast. If you calculate it this way, it's slightly different. And that way you're not hiding anything.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do now. If we're in a forum where people want to drill a little deeper, we have started to say, well, yeah, everything tracks at the gross level, at the county-wide level, but as you look at allocating down to the jurisdictions, it's not perfect. And we've decided to go with population over housing units because, as you know, people use water, not houses. But the number of housing units doesn't align perfectly with the population forecast, is kind of what we've been saying.
And
notwithstanding the fact that AMBAG themselves says that their forecast includes RENA, but I don't think they ever checked their jurisdiction by jurisdiction tables to see if they were consistent.
I bet that's a level of detail maybe they didn't.
Yeah.
Well, if you were to try to boil this down to where the variability occurs, is it really the assumption about the numbers of people per house? Is that where it arises?
Yeah, I think so, because what we do when we assign water to housing stock, we make certain assumptions. If it's very affordable, it's like 0.08 acre feet per unit. If it's affordable, it's kind of like 0.12. If it's market rate, it's higher. But then we look at the amount of housing in each category, and the average comes out to be about 0.12 acre feet per unit, which means 1 acre foot's going to get you, 7 to 8 units. Well, we know that single family homes in Carmel Valley, it's really only 4 or 5 homes per acre foot. But we know tinier homes in Carmel or PG, you can get, 6 homes per acre foot. And so then you start layering in condos without individual landscaping and so forth. That's how you get down to 0.08. And so it's, when you're assigning water to houses, you do that because you don't know what the population forecast is. But in AMBAG's regional growth forecast, we do know what population is going to be. And that's one of their sources of pride as to how good their model has been in the 2 other cycles that they've used it to predict population. So we've pretty much said, look, it's a third-party forecast. They've run it against 3 other models. They like the outcomes. They're statistically significant on population forecasting for all 4 test models. So we're going with population. But then somebody could come in and say, well, are you sure arena's in there if the number of units don't add up correctly in the 6 cities? And that's where our answer is, there's a problem, because at the countywide level, clearly the total number of housing units is greater than the RENA number of housing units.
Do you have that number, the difference?
Yeah, it's like 26,000 countywide in the growth forecast and 21,200 in the RENA forecast. So we know that they're projecting enough housing, and you also then, as you dig into this whole thing, you also have to be a believer that RENA never intended you to build all the units in the 8-year RENA cycle.
Yeah.
They intended you to entitle them and plan for them and zone for them, but they're only going to get there whenever private development spends the dollars to get it there, or you get a nice foundation who will build you something.
So here's the challenge as I see it. I understand completely why you dug this deep into it and you want to know what's true and what's not true and understand and see where what that discrepancy is and what it's about in case it comes up. But there's no way we go into the weeds.
No.
Like
Well, the important thing is it doesn't really change the conclusions. I mean, it really doesn't. It would move the green dotted line, the demand forecast. It would just tip it up by a little more than 3 acre-feet per year. And as I said, out over 30 years, it's about 120 acre-feet,
okay, so
which doesn't change your conclusions.
so that's the answer if it comes
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one more question. When you were just quoting that the very low income housing, it was 0.6 or 0.8, something like that. And then as you go up to different levels of affordability, it went up to 1.2 and 1.4, or whatever those were.
Yep.
That's acre feet, and that is that assumption based upon that these people have more property and they're going to be irrigating and planting things because they're richer, or is it more people, or what?
Yeah, it's
that
typically,
correlate with?
typically it's both. Bigger house, more bedrooms, more people. Standalone house, more landscape to be irrigated.
Okay.
And let me just.
I think that's helpful to hear as a difference, because it's easy to relate to as a person that's listening to it, that you're talking about both number of people and how they would have the money to invest in the property and use more water, whatever.
Yeah, and where I think it breaks down is kind of the what we're seeing in Seaside right now, where a single family home might have 2 or even 3 families in it.
Mm.
And that's something I don't think anyone really has factored into a lot of the basic building blocks of these models.
Do the demand forecasts factor in the effect of water conserving landscaping requirements and other conservation, but especially that one?
Yeah, our translation to water usage does, and that's why over time these numbers have gotten lower. And that's why, I mean, even Kate Daniels the other day said something like, well, yeah, I mean, an acre foot, that's like 2 houses. And we're like, whoa, where'd you get that data point from? That's like 2 houses in a very wealthy section of Carmel Valley about 20 years ago. You just don't see it that way anymore. In fact, I hate doing this to you guys all the time, but I must really like it. So these are the breakdowns of the 6 cities. So very low, low, moderate, and above moderate, which is market rate. And these are the numbers of units. And so what we do is we come in and we say, multifamily is going to be equal portions of 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and 2 bedroom, 2 bath. So that's an average of 0.0945 acre feet per unit. But then you get in here where we're saying moderate can be half single family and half multifamily. And our single family factor is about 0.18, or in other words, just over 5 units per acre foot. And so, you know, you start to apply these averages for the class of housing times the total number, and that's how you get to a certain amount. Now, this doesn't show any adjustment for housing served by others. So like Seaside's going to have a bunch in the old Fort Ord that's going to be picked up by Marina Coast Water District, Delray Oaks, and so forth. So this number, 750, has taken on a life of its own. And I've seen that 750 repeated. In fact, it might be, yeah, it's not in the RENA forecast. They go to 745. But really that number would be smaller because of the water served by others. And so, you know, trying to make it super clear that they have taken, the Coastal Commission has taken on a demand forecast and a supply forecast that has a series of these little mistaken assumptions or errors that then add up to a giant mistaken assumption. It's a losing battle. I mean, if you had somebody get an epiphany and say, oh, so the supply and demand numbers we have are junk, I really need to consider somebody else's, and therefore there is a feasible alternative without desal, that would be great. But we're dealing with, you know, however many, is it 12 or 15, 16? I can't recall. Total number of commissioners, only half of which will take an ex parte meeting. And as you saw in today's ex parte meeting, he wanted to steer us to the one thing that they can control, which is there an assumption that's wrong so that the guidance that we get from our statute on how to make a decision can be affected? Tell me about that. You know, what's wrong with the supply and demand? But boy, trying to get to an actual rock solid explanation so that even he, you know, and he was open to it. Well, what's wrong? Tell me.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. That's illuminating. But we're really not there. Then how do you get, you know, all of the commissioners, or at least more than half, to say there's a real problem here?
Well, I mean, the staff report did not consider your analysis and Peter Mayer's analysis, and you are the two of you, your analysis is more credible for lots of reasons. They didn't consider it. And, you know, what you were explaining to Padilla still holds, that there's a certain things are double counted.
Yeah.
And it was unintentional, surely, but that's it. And that's what makes the difference. To get a more accurate, you know, demand and supply numbers, they should have considered this analyses, which they have in the record, and apparently were not considered in the staff report.
Yeah.
That should red flag for some of the commissioners and their lawyers. Also, the PUC is going to look at all of that and in a few months make a decision what's the most accurate forecast. So the Coastal Commission is a very reasonable option of waiting to see what that is.
Well, and I think we do have, and Dave Loretta, I'd be curious about your opinion, but because the prior decision said two different things that I think are important. One is we don't like a 4.8 MGD plant for these reasons, and they cited them. You know, no benefit to the ratepayer, harsher environmental outcomes, less water and less contingency. Does CalAm need to go back to the Public Utilities Commission and say, well, we just sold the Coastal Commission on a 4.8 MGD plant?
CalAm does not have authorization from the PUC to build what they're asking
proposing
to build with this
Yeah.
Coastal Commission.
Okay.
It needs to be reconciled somehow.
And then the second one, which is more self-evident.
Wouldn't it require a supplemental EIR?
See,
phase-
and I think the answer now is yes, because their first step would be to say, oh, it's going to have lesser environmental impact, so therefore the old EIR works. But one of the things they've said is they're going to drill an extra 1,000 feet so they get out further underneath the ocean. Well, we know on their one test well, they couldn't even get the casing out at the distance and length that they're at. So they've got no engineering that they submitted to show they can actually drill the extra 1,000 acre feet. But if they say they are, then they're going to need to environmentally scope that for sure, because that's incrementally an additional impact potentially.
No, but also a phased approach would mean, construction going on twice, let's
Yep.
say.
And if they're getting a footprint approved that could accommodate a 6.4 MGD, then I think you do have to show the cumulative impact. And so now they'll have 2 mobilizations in the sand dune area eventually, and they never scoped that.
And the PUC said something about that in the 2018 decision, that
Yeah,
would-
that's why one of the reasons they didn't like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the other issue is the cost cap. So they had a $279.2 million cost cap on the desal plant plus the CalAm only facilities, excluding the Monterey pipeline and excluding AFUDC. I don't see any way that they're still within that cost cap. And the decision specifically said, if you need relief from this, you need to file a petition for modification, which we all know is a year to an 18-month process.
And they didn't say there was a advice letter process for going over the cost cap?
No, they said a petition for modification. Yeah, or a petition to modify this decision.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that they're kind of stuck. They're selling the Coastal Commission on, hey, there's just some minor follow-up permits that we're going to need, but you can go ahead and waive your requirement to have pre-approvals or final approvals for everything else. And we'll just go take care of these small details later. And it's mind-boggling that they're going to get away with it, I suspect. So,
But wouldn't all those other things take years, and wouldn't they have to get signed off on all of those before they're going to have any permission?
well, and that's what I'm thinking. That's kind of the basis of this question. Is, do we really think they're going to have to go back in front of the commission? And I think it's, as Dave said, they don't have approval for the project they're currently peddling. And they probably don't have enough room under the cap, so they're going to have to file a petition for modification. And yeah, those both take a while. And to Karen's point, if they haven't scoped the environmental impacts, they're going to have to do a supplemental.
In the meantime, we work on buying them without the plant built.
Yeah.
Well, one of the 20 conditions that really got my attention is that the staff recommended that the permit be for only 25 years because of the need to replace the wells in 20 or 25 years and the sea level rise.
Yeah, I
dilemma.
found that really interesting.
Because, and that should get the PUC's attention, because
Absolutely.
what's the useful life of this thing?
And where are you going to move it to? They don't have a place, do they?
Well, I think now they're saying with a 4.8, that'll give them greater flexibility at moving wellheads due to sea level rise. So as long as they don't need the 6.4, they're in a slightly better place. But Now, this was a narrative that was kind of
Mm,
thrown at the wall and stuck,
mhm.
just really 2 months ago.
Dave, do you want to touch for a moment on the all party meeting on Wednesday?
Yeah, and actually I was going to sign off by saying, will you, Fran, and I get together tomorrow and talk about it? Because,
Yes.
yeah. So they called this all hands meeting on the proposed decision for phase 1. And they did it in person in Sacramento. And Kevin Tilden will show up and Sarah Leeper will show up. So I'm going up. Monterey One Water's asked if we're going up. I think they're going to go up. Marina Costa is intending to be there. But, our goal is to sign a water purchase agreement
Mhm.
and get the expansion out there. So, if Cal-Am is feeling like they've not gotten all their cost recovery, I'm not sure that's our issue. We know that they're already overstating what their cost recovery desires are. But, I think, and this is why I want to get together with Fran and Dave tomorrow, but my answer would be whatever the public advocate's office says is the best position on cost recovery, because they know more about it than we do. And so this sounds more like an internal family issue at the
Yeah.
PUC. I
Dave,
don't know.
can we set that at 10 o'clock tomorrow?
Let me see. No. 11?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, we'll do that at 11.
Okay, if you want to discuss any of these, either Coastal Commission or the
Yeah.
PUC with me, just send me a text message, or we'll find time. Okay.
Sounds good. Everybody have a good evening.
Okay.
All right.
You too.